It's 89.9 KCRW, Morning Becomes Eclectic. You've heard me playing the single Bad Insect. And Ultraísta is a compelling new band comprised of Radiohead producer Nigel Godrich, Beck drummer Joey Waronker, and singer Laura Bettinson. Their album came out just last October. And we are pleased to be joined by the trio at the Village Studios on a beautiful Southern California day. How are you?
Very well.
Happy to be here.
Very happy to be here.
So tell us about the genesis of the project for our audience.
Well, basically, these guys have known each other for a long, long time,
Sure.
and they'd started kind of making some music kind of loosely based around Afrobeat rhythms and like merging like electronica with that kind of thing, the idea of like playing loops continuously, basically doing that kind of thing. And so they already had like the basis of the rhythm tracks and the kind of influence and things down before I joined the project. And then I was introduced to Nigel first and then Joey a bit later, but through a mutual friend of ours, and I was studying at the time in London, and he came to a gig of mine just in a pub, like a really dingy pub in the East End of London, and I was doing like a loop station thing with like vocals and vocal harmonies, but just solely over beats, you know, no other music really other than just doing stuff with your vocals. And so that seemed to fit, I think, with what the guys were doing at the time. And then we just got together and started playing about, really, and seeing what we could make. And
This was in the 1970s.
yeah.
It's taken a while.
What was it like for you to find yourself, you know, you're a student, and then, you know, now you're kind of working with these very esteemed musicians with such pedigree? I mean, were you just kind of in shock, or?
It was just really exciting, really. I mean, just to be given the opportunity to kind of work in like an amazing studio and with people that do have so much experience, and it was just really fun. I mean, it's not like anyone was putting on any pretense or anything like that. It was just, you know, it was either going to work and we'd get on as friends as well as just, you know, people making music together. And we did, thankfully. And so, I mean, I didn't even come into the project thinking that we were going to make an album or be a band or anything, really. It was more just like, come and see if this is going to be a good fit, and it was.
And it fit.
Yeah, I mean, from our perspective, we were just, you know, we were just playing around and always making music all the time. And, you know, obviously Joe and I have known each other for a long time, and we've always sort of really enjoyed the time we get alone, you know, to sort of muck around. And so by the time that we got all this stuff together, we were just sort of, we just had this little fantasy project where it's like, yeah, it's going to be instrumental. We're just going to make these kind of like locked grooves that just go on forever, and, you know, with the kind of mindset of things that we would like to listen to. And then we just sort of thought that we'd try and see how it would work if we made it a little bit more sophisticated and took it to, you know, give it another layer. And meeting Laura, I mean, really, you know, she has been amazing and just so very kind of intelligent about the whole thing, I think, is the kind of crux of it.
What was it that you saw or heard in Laura that kind of made you think, you know, yeah, this is right?
Well, I think the thing is, we talked about it. The last thing that we wanted, you know, we weren't trying to like, okay, let's make a band and like find somebody to sort of like bolt onto this thing that we've done. It's sort of like, who would we like to be with? What would inspire us, you know? Because another way of looking at it is that, you know, we're longer in the tooth, you know, and you know, you're always looking for some sort of new kind of energy and inspiration, and new angle and new opinions and new something to kind of freshen up the way that you are, because you have to be very careful not to get lazy. So when I saw, I knew what we weren't looking for. We talked about it. We don't want, you know, somebody who sits there with an acoustic guitar and writes songs, and, you know, somebody who's sort of, it's just something a little bit more unusual. Originally, the idea was to find someone who wasn't even a musician, you know, just find somebody who could sing, but who was discovering themselves in the process of doing it. That's always sort of more interesting, and kind of harks back to the more sort of artistic kind of, you know.
So something just very fresh, a fresh perspective,
Yeah,
a very pure perspective.
Yeah, and without like, you know, putting a separate agenda on it. Like Laura, we all sort of were able to, you know, it took time, but create our own agenda together, which is, you know, it sounds natural, but it's sometimes not the case.
Very hard, yeah. I mean, the hardest thing about all of these things that you don't really realize, or being in a band, or it's the subtleties of dynamics of personalities. You know, it's the same in a recording studio. You know, if you're making music, there's so much going on, and it's all about, if that stuff goes well, then you're able to kind of get over any kind of obstacle that you may come across as artistic, you know, creatively, you know. But anyway, so when I saw her, yeah, I mean, she was just playing. It was just mainly beats and vocal looping stuff, and I felt like that was something that she could bring to us, you know. Yeah.
As a producer mindset coming into realizing a project and studio sessions, did you have certain principles that you wanted to set for this band, and kind of this is the frame within which we will work?
Yeah, totally. I mean, first of all, there's no guitars. Secondly, it's all supposed to be uplifting and rhythmically driven, and hence, you know, because the starting point was these rhythm tracks that we had done, so that was the basis. So it's sort of like trying to retain this energy that we did have from our original sort of like jams, and then somehow make it more musically sophisticated. Yeah, we were trying to just like make music to jump up and down to originally.
Yeah.
But,
We're talking with Ultraísta. I want to ask you about the limitations. You know, both of you have been associated with some of the biggest artists in the world. So you have that luxury. You know, by working with some of these artists, you have carte blanche. People are interested in what you're doing automatically. This project, I'm assuming, has required, really, in order to get the message out, in order to fulfill what your ambitions and what you'd hope for with it, you probably had to roll up your sleeves quite a bit and say, you know, hey, knock on some doors, say, hey, check this out. And I'm just guessing that might be a different thing for you too, because you're used to just sort of open the floodgates, everyone get in here, you know. Has it been more of a challenge on this project just to get people's attention?
God, I don't know. I mean,
or does that matter? Maybe that doesn't matter.
Well, you know, go on.
I mean,
go
I'd
on.
say yes, it was, but but the last thing we wanted to do would be, I mean, the original idea was that we would to just do the thing. It would exist in a vacuum and just be the name and see what happened. If, you know, we live in a really bizarre state of affairs right now, and the truth is, it's like you do have to work to get people's attention.
Absolutely.
And we're not, you know, but Joey and I are kicking again. It's like you know, we're labelled, you know, God bless everybody on the planet, but it's like Radiohead producer, Nigel Godrich, Beck drummer, you know, it's which is, obviously it's not to discount it, but this is like, oh, can we just do something else?
And it obviously gives us a leg up for sure. So in a weird way, I feel like we're actually still getting
the best of both.
A fair amount of recognition,
Sure.
you know.
And also, I think it stimulates your own kind of creative process as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to assume, to try and be as to try not to, you know, to not use that thing as much as. But I would love for it to. You want it to be its own thing. I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, that was the thing from the beginning. It's like, okay, it's the three of us, and it's just its own little hermetic whatever, and please don't compare us to something else, because it's fine. You don't have to listen to it if you don't like it. It's fine. But you know, we think, for us, it's valid to do it in the first place, and the validation does not come one iota from being associated with something else. It's about trying to do something different.
Ultraísta, thank you for coming through KCRW, spending the time, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.